We're almost at the pinnacle, Fantasy GMs, which is why every single episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast is going to ensure your team is in tip-top shape to get this paper and take your team to the championship. We're breaking down all of the major waiver wire ads that you need and Monday's big-time bets on the latest edition of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We hope the weekend was a winning one for all of our fantasy GMs out there. Welcome back inside the lab to the Monday edition of your daily 30-minute source for fantasy hockey, NHL news, and betting breakdowns. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast with Steele and Flip. Shout out to the everydayers holding us down and making us your first listen every single day. We're free and available everywhere you find your favorite content. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Steele, I know you're giving it to me big time in our casual league. I don't want to talk about that perhaps till later in the week. However, there are some options out there that fantasy GMs have to pounce on the waiver wire. Before we get to tonight's NHL betting board later in the week, there's a ton of angles you and I have to cover. Right now, I'm focused. I've got some forwards. I got a D-man. I got a goalie. A bunch of options out there. Another big weekend in the NHL. So who are you looking at and why? Because we've been saying this now the last couple of weeks. Pounce now, or you might really regret it until next season for these waiver ads.
Yeah, there's a lot of options right now, and we can get really deep into it because a lot of players who are rostered under 10% have been very hot this last week, and I
love
think
it.
they can continue that into this next 7 days in your weekly matchup as well. I got lots of players I want to suggest for the next 7 days, starting with a couple of players from the Buffalo Sabres, and obviously this is a very difficult team to get behind and support. And even try to get interest fantasy value wise. But I still think there is a lot of pieces that you can pick from the Sabres right now. I got 3 players: Ryan McLeod, Jason Zucker, and Bowen Byram. McLeod, he's out there in all leagues, rostered at 2%, Zucker at 19%, and Byram at 3%. All 3 of these players are on point streaks right now, 3+ game point streaks. Byram coming off a 2-assist game the other day against the Vegas Golden Knights as well. I still think there's a lot of value to be had with these guys, especially Jason Zucker and Ryan McLeod, who are on that second line for the Buffalo Sabres. So those are 3 guys I really like this week. 4 games for the Sabres, a little bit of a mixed bag here. You got the Boston Bruins, Utah Hockey Club, Wild, and the Winnipeg Jets. You still get 4 games. Other than those are 3 guys I'm looking at for sure. Over to the Boston Bruins before I throw it back over to you. I'm looking at Elias Lindholm this week as well. 31% rostered on Yahoo. 4 points in his last 4 games. Also has 4 games this week. Sabres, Golden Knights, Sharks, and Kings. He is currently projected on that third line for the Boston Bruins. And I know, again, there's not a lot to like on paper with this lineup outside of David Pastrnak. Mm-hmm. But again, point streak, 4-game point streak for Lindholm. He's got some chemistry right now on that third line with Lacko and Maret. So I like Elias Lindholm. I like the schedule for the Sabres and for the Bruins.
I think this is a very intriguing stretch of the schedule, depending on the format of the league, that you almost want to, like if you're close to deciding on a player, I would almost always go with, depending on the format, again, the schedule. If a player, you're really trying to make that push and get into the playoffs, I would almost de facto choose a guy, again, depending on the format, that has the 4 games this week. So I think the schedule is extra important this week. And I did my best with the players that I've chosen to include that angle, but at the same time, a player like Mackie Samoskevich that you and I talked about, I think 2 waiver wire episodes ago, getting such a good opportunity in the top 6, playing with Bennett and Verhaeghe on the second line for the Florida Panthers, putting up points as well over his last 5 games. He's got 3 goals and 2 assists, minutes up 20 plus minutes of ice time in their previous game against the Montreal Canadiens. I know that was a loss. Big win for the Montreal Canadiens. And my goodness me, Steele, a bunch of teams in the East on Saturday around the Toronto Maple Leafs got massive wins, and the Leafs did not. I think you and I need to touch on the Toronto Maple Leafs later in this week. Anyway, Florida still cooking. Samoskevich filling in while Tkachuk is gone. You have to be taking a look at this player, and I'll leave it at this before it's back to you. 34% fan tracks. That's a mistake. 19 on Yahoo and 9 on ESPN. Pens, jackets, and caps. Bit of a mixed bag because the Pens are hot. I like this week still for the Florida Panthers, and a top 6 forward that's available. I don't think I need to say much more on one of the best teams in the NHL.
There's a reason we've mentioned him over the last couple of weeks because he's sitting in the top 6 and he's hot right now in Florida. Great suggestion once again. You know, we're going to be talking about a lot of guys that we have mentioned all season long.
Of course.
We're talking about some new players as well on this episode. Ross Colton, I'm going back out west. You know, we've talked about the Colorado Avalanche, finding some pieces in there. Jonathan Drouin, again, if he's still available, go get him. He's red hot right now, and he's playing well on that second line with Valeri Nichushkin and Brock Nelson. Ross Colton, though, 6 points in his last 4 games. 5 points in his last 4 games. He's contributing with a lot of shots on net, hits, blocks. He's a very physical guy as well. I really like the schedule for Colorado. They are on the road, only 3 games this week, but all Canadian teams. The Colorado Avalanche taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are fighting right now. The Ottawa Senators, who are red hot, and the Montreal Canadiens, who are hot as well. But I like the Colorado Avalanche. They play with a lot of speed going on the road. They know it's important going into these games in Toronto, in Ottawa, and Montreal, as well as they fight for their life. In the Eastern Conference, Ross Colton, one of those deeper dive guys, rostered at 13% right now.
And once again, how could you not want a piece of what's going on with the hottest team in the NHL? 8-1-1 in their last 10 games for the Avs. Did you see that Makar Magic in overtime Sunday against the Dallas Stars?
Sir.
If you haven't, I implore you to run the tape back. This team is dangerous, Steele. And I don't think even still, before the trades, we knew they were going to do something. We already liked them as a, kind of a team that was perhaps not getting enough respect to make some noise in the playoffs. I don't think anyone's overlooking them anymore. And with a big kind of message statement win against the Stars, a team that they might have to go through here in OT, the Rantanen storyline, go out there and get yourself a piece of the Avs. My boy just highlighted a piece that you can have. Taylor Hall, Steele, when the trade happened, the NACAS shakeup, the rosters kind of, there was an overhaul here for the Carolina Hurricanes. This man is settling in, and now with a bit more of an opportunity, he's putting up some points, Steele, and the Carolina Hurricanes are winning games. And how about this? 30% on Fantrax, 5 Yahoo, 3 ESPN. He's out there. Sharks, Kings, and Ducks this week. Then Habs, Isles, Preds. A very good stretch here for the Carolina Hurricanes, a team that's already winning. He's getting an opportunity in the top 6. Kotkaniemi in the center role right there, dishing it around, having some production. It's not super sexy, Steele, but you can't be overlooking these opportunities right now at this point of the year. Right now, Taylor Hall for me, and I do have this up here, over the last 5 games, 2 goals, 3 assists, ice time, way up, putting up power play points as well. Get yourself a little bit of Taylor Hall love if you need an offensive boost. He's the perfect pick up and drop. Have a look at the schedule. If you need someone against one of these weaker teams and Carolina is feasting, boom. Thank Uncle Flip later. Taylor Hall is feeling it right now.
Great player to have, great depth player to have on your fantasy roster. When we come back after the break, I got 3 defensemen that you need to take a look at and a goalie for this upcoming week. And of course, all of Flip's suggestions as well. Prime time on Fantasy Hockey, Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. All of that coming up after the break.
I got a forward, a D-man, and a goalie myself. Big time bets, 5-game Monday night NHL board. But first, we got to show some love to our friends from Factor. Eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated, and with Factor, you get that chef-made, dietitian-approved meal set ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes. You can fuel your body without the hassle of cooking. Factor meals arrive fresh, never frozen, and with over 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week, you can customize your menu to fit your life goals, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto, or just Steele and I looking to eat a healthy meal. Convenience meets nutrition with Factor. Eat smart with Factor and get started at factormeals.com/Factor Podcast and use code Factor Podcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That is Factor Podcast at factormeals.com/Factor Podcast to get 50 off plus free shipping on your first box.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all the love and support, the comments on the YouTube channel, the feedback through Twitter, all the engagement, the questions we get asked. We appreciate it also. Thank you so much for all of that. Like I said, I got 3 defensemen and a goaltender for this upcoming week that you should be keeping your eyes on and maybe even pulling the trigger on to add to your fantasy hockey team. Number 1, I got to reiterate it. I got to mention him again. Luke Hughes, rostered at 57% now. His percentage has gone up over 10% in the last week. Over the last 4 games, he's had an average ice time of 24.5 minutes. He played 26.5 against the Pittsburgh Penguins the other day in that 7-3 loss. He has 5 points in his last 4 games. Again, doesn't really jump off the page with blocks and hits. He's shooting the puck a little bit more because he has that opportunity in New Jersey now, quarterbacking the first power play unit. So I had to mention him again. Sure. Over to the Western Conference Dallas Stars, Cody Ceci. I have to mention him this week. I never thought I would mention Cody Ceci as a player to add on a weekly basis, but Cody Ceci rostered at 2% this week. He's played very well in the 14 games in Dallas since being traded from San Jose. 7 assists. He's a +6, 11 shots, 24 blocks, and 18 hits. 3 games this week for the Dallas Stars, the Anaheim Ducks, Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Philadelphia Flyers. So if you need some help on the back end, Cody Ceci, he's hot right now. He's got a 3-game point streak with 4 points in those 3 games. So just a guy that you can add for some blocks, some hits, a couple of shots on net. And if he's going to continue producing in the offensive zone and helping out his teammates, why not pick him up? He's out there.
It's time to get nitty gritty, Steele. And I think honestly,
it really is.
With this next player, though, it doesn't make any sense to me that, usually Fantrax numbers, it's a little bit more of an astute, like serious players. Not to say that serious GMs aren't in Yahoo or ESPN leagues, but Fantrax for the most part is a paid format. And when I see Quinton Byfield only out there at 70% on Fantrax right now at this point of the season with everything that we've talked about, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I understand that he has been a very polarizing player, considering that he was a 2nd overall draft pick and immediately you want results. He has got 5 goals in his last 5 games. He's scoring OT winners. Ice time is way up as well. And I just want to throw this out there right now. Somebody, and you've been selling me on Darcy Kemper. So if you're as confident in Darcy Kemper as I am starting to become, this LA Kings team deserves a lot more respect on its name. And when you look at that division, I'm not going to talk about the teams in the Central. Let's just focus on the end of the season. Why not this LA Kings team as the division winners? 2 games in hand on the Golden Knights, only 5 points back, and I know the Knights are the Knights. But this is a really good opportunity for this team to make some noise, and they are doing so. 5-3-2, 5 straight wins. Quinton Byfield doing his thing. Ownership, 50% on Yahoo as well, 45 on ESPN, and 4 games this week, Steele. Wild, Hawks, Canes, Bruins. Other than the Canes, loving those 3 games for the Kings. And I want to wrap it up by saying this. When a team is actually as good as they are defensively, and you look at those numbers, Steele, only the Winnipeg Jets have allowed less goals against. Nobody's talking about how good this Kings team is at both ends of the ice, Steele, and perhaps they should, because he's also playing with Fiala and Laferriere on a good second line. Quinton Byfield is my favorite ad of the week for all of the reasons I just laid down.
Definitely should be rostered higher than 50 and 45% on ESPN and Yahoo. We mentioned the LA Kings last week with Warren Fogle, Philip Deneau, Trevor Moore, those guys in the bottom 6 who have been contributing. But yes, if Quinton Byfield's out there in your league, especially at this point in the season, whether this next week you're going to be starting your first playoff matchups or you're already in the playoffs or you still got 1 week left in the regular season, you want to make sure if Quinton Byfield's available that he is on your team, especially with this 4 games coming up this next week one last defenseman and a goaltender. I mentioned him at the beginning of the season. Actually, I believe in the preseason that this could be a guy to keep an eye out for. I don't believe I've mentioned him once throughout the year, but if not, this might be the first time since the preseason. Darren Raddysh of the Tampa Bay Lightning. You remember this.
I remember. I remember.
And maybe I was a little bit overzealous when I was talking about him, hyping him up a little bit, but he's on a hot streak right now, and I still think he's a guy to keep an eye on for going into next year. He's got 7 points in his last 5 games. He's on pace for all career highs in goals, assists, points, plus, minus, shots on net. The blocks and the hits are a little bit down, but I still think he can finish the year very strong. He's got 5 goals, 31 points on the season. He's 2 points away from his career high, and he still has 15 to 20 games left on the season with Tampa Bay. The thing that maybe there's a question mark with this player, sometimes his ice time varies from game to game. So he could go out and get 22 minutes of ice time on one night, and then the next game he goes out and gets 14 minutes. So the ice time varies a little bit, but when he's hot, and he's got 7 points in his last 5 games, 4 games for the Tampa Bay Lightning, Philadelphia Flyers, Dallas Stars, Utah Hockey Club, and the Vegas Golden Knights. It's a very hard week for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I think they would want someone of Darren Raddish's stature, big guy, big defenseman, who can lay the hit from time to time in the lineup. So I like the schedule regardless of the tough opponents.
John Cooper obviously hasn't been shy about trying to shake up that defensive lineup a little bit at times for the Tampa Bay Lightning, trying to get the best fit. I'm also looking at the blue line, Steele, because this is the hardest, lineup to fill at this time of year. Lots of guys hurt, lots of guys struggling. Blue liners are hard to come by. Jared Spurgeon hasn't exactly been jumping off the page. This might be a little ode to you as a Wild fan. I just see the value there. 2 assists the other night. He can chip in with a couple of hits here and there. I just kind of like what I've seen from Jared Spurgeon lately, and this is a bit of a deeper cut. Kings, Kraken, and Sabres. I like that schedule for the week. 42% on Fantrax, 26 Yahoo, only 27 on ESPN. A good option I would also throw out who's been hot is Philip Ronek on the blue line. But I just wanted to throw Jared Spurgeon some love because I don't know if anyone in the fantasy game ever shows him any love. But this is something like I read his 6th or 7th out of the last 8 years with 30-plus points. 30-plus points from a guy who quietly gets it done and can chip in. A couple of years ago, he had 180 blocks. So when it comes to the blue line at this point in the year, just like we said before, it's not going to be pretty. Jared Spurgeon, to me, a little bit of a risky situation. However, not many better options in terms of good on-ice players. Spurgeon I like. Ronek I like. Wanted to throw out some blue line options.
I like that we have a lot of blue line options this week. We typically only have 1 or 2, but we've been throwing a lot out there for the next 7 days. This is, again, a very important week in your fantasy hockey leagues. Playoffs right around the corner, or they're starting this week for a lot of us out there. We're going to come back after the break. Big time bets. I got one last player or goaltender. I know you got a goaltender as well. All of that and more coming up next. But first, this episode is also brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keeping you feel fuller for longer. Personally, we love the no shells variety on here. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on the road, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to snack. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are also a classic favorite. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. This episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. And once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day, Monday through Friday. 7 o'clock is when you can find our episodes. Hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We're going to get to big time bets very, very shortly. But one last player from both Flip and I for this upcoming week. 2 goaltenders. Maybe you have the same one as me. I'm looking at Tristan Jarry of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's at 20% rostered on Yahoo right now. He's up 14%. Was brought back up from the minors just a week and a half ago. He's played 4 games. He's won 4 games. He's on a 4-game win streak right now for the Pittsburgh Penguins. 3 games this week: Florida Panthers, Columbus Blue Jackets, and the New York Islanders. I don't want to say that the Pittsburgh Penguins are completely out of it. They're 8 points back of the second wild card spot.
4 straight wins.
They somehow need to win they need to win at least 10 of their last 13 games in the season if they even want a chance to make the playoffs. Tristan Jarry, he could be a huge factor in that. He's red hot right now. If you need some help in the blue paint, Tristan Jarry, good option.
Dream situation, Steele, for someone my age and anyone who's a hockey fan is Sidney Crosby sneaks into the 8th spot and the Washington Capitals take on Sid, and it's Ovi and Sid in the first round would be an absolute treat. Is it a long shot? Potentially. It's not that far out of the realm of expectation, because take this in, though. As much as the Pittsburgh Penguins have been a punching bag for most of the season, you can't deny what Sid can do in the clutch, and that's what this is. So Tristan Jarry also, Steele, in his career, for a goaltender with a .910 save percentage, 2.74 goals against, and nearly 20 shutouts, and he's only 29 years old. It's not surprising to me that he's bounced back and done this, but can he do it on an extended clip is obviously a concern. Right now, though, jump all over him. I'm so glad that you mentioned it. 42 on Fantrax, 20 Yahoo, 23 on ESPN. They got the Isles, Jackets, and Panthers, so complete mixed bag there. But I kind of like that. Islanders and Jackets, favorable matchups, I would say. Panthers, good luck. But speaking of which, talk about bets if you're okay. I just want to spit my 3 out very quickly. It's a same game parlay.
Go for it.
Deep breath, Steele. Toronto Maple Leafs are in trouble. And
Yes,
there's a few different angles here that I don't think I have the energy after a very late night previously to get into. However, Calgary rolling into town is a perfect opportunity to nip this in the bud, no pun intended, and maybe let's just move on. Calgary at Toronto. I got the Maple Leafs on the money line. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10. This is a same game parlay. The goaltending needs to be better. They've also hung their hat this year on being a different club, defensively stingy, tough in front of the net, all of that. So hit me with the under then. Goaltenders have to be better, whether it's Woll or Stolars, both need to be better. And I expect that to happen. Dustin Wolf has been lights out, so I love it. I'm going to take it up to 6.5 and hammer the under. Mitchie Marnes has got to get back to doing what he does best, and that's contributing by creating. I think he's been sensational, and I expect him to continue to be. 18 points in 23 regular season games against the Flames. Lock of the night, Marner. Anytime assist. The Leafs need this one bad, Steele, because the teams around them are all surging. They smell blood in the water, and there is no guarantee that this team holds down a top 3 spot, and then they're in real trouble.
I love when we're on the same page, because I have a same game parlay as well from the Toronto Maple Leafs Calgary Flames game. A little bit different on one aspect, but I agree with you. Hopefully your Mitch Marner prop goes with my John Tavares anytime goal in this game right now. He's got 3 goals in his last 4 games. Again, this is a gut feeling for me. I've been looking at Austin Matthews to hop on the score sheet. He's been struggling. Nylander's been a little bit cold as well. I know he got a goal last game. I like John Tavares on the power play, anytime goal for my first pick. Second pick, Leafs on the money line as well. They need to create distance from the Ottawa Senators right now. Again, unfortunate they got swept in the season series against Ottawa. 4 points up on them right now. They need a big 2-point win over the Calgary Flames. I'm also taking the Leafs on the money line in this game on Monday. Third pick, this is where we're a little bit different. I'm taking the over 5.5.
Yeah,
seven of the last 10 between the Flames and Leafs have gone over the number, at least over 5.5 in this case. And like you said, the goaltending has been a little bit shaky. Stolarz and Wall have not been on their game. And while I agree that I would like to see them get back to their game, they're not on it right now. And so I'm going with the trend of what I've been seeing. A lot of goals in this game. I think it's going to be close, which we typically see against the Flames and Leafs. I know, like you said, 8-1-1 in the last 10, but a lot of one-goal games that we've seen between the Flames and the Leafs. So I think there's going to be a lot of goals from both sides, like a 4-3, maybe 5-4 type of situation. I'm going to take the over 5.5.
How about 4-2 and we're both happy? Under 6.5.
I like the
4-2
as well.
5.5. The Calgary Flames have been a notorious group for losing a lot of close games. 1-goal games have been their downfall over the last couple of seasons. I like it, Steele. It's a big week on tap here. Let's get after it. We'll be back Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, bringing you what you need to get this fantasy paper.
Where you can get after it and find all your information is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod. Thank you so much for making it your first listen. For your second listen, please check out the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. From both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with your bets tonight, your weekly matchups, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.